I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Randolph Keene is kind of a short man. He weighs about 140 pounds. He's kind of balding, and his glasses kind of list to one side. And if you look at him, sometimes you think that he must have kind of a cockeyed view of the world. But if you look him in the eye, you see that he has beautiful blue eyes that are fully paying attention to you, to what you're saying. It's almost like you can feel his heart. He's so present. And he lives in a 3-bedroom, 1-story, kind of a storybook house, really. A beautiful house with round doors, arched doors, and it has a big porch in front of his house. And his family moved a lot when he was a child. And so he says, this is what he said. He says, I was an awkward, skinny kid. I didn't feel comfortable in my own body or with myself because we moved so much. I want to live in this house the rest of my life. One day I went for a walk around my neighborhood. It was a beautiful spring day in Minneapolis. I noticed how many of my neighbors had beautiful gardens and flowers in front of their house. My next door neighbor had beautiful white roses that had just the most incredible fragrance. When I started walking up to my own house, I noticed that on my porch, someone had left a truckload of dung. And can you imagine walking around the neighborhood and on a great day and coming back to your house, and then you notice that there's a pile of dung right outside your door? You know, and I know that I didn't ask for it, I didn't order it, I didn't leave it there, and it was filthy and offensive, and I wanted to get rid of it. It was smelling up my whole house. So there's a few ways that Randolph could have handled this dung. He could have put some in his pockets, and he could have drove around town and gone and seen people in stores and dropped it off and left it everywhere he went. Or he could have done something productive with the dung. You know, that truckload of dung is a metaphor for the tragedies and the things that happen in our lives, that sort of get left in our lives that we didn't ask for. We didn't cause them to happen, but we're stuck with it. And it's awful. And these events can feel like they're destroying us, and that we carry this essence of these things wherever we go. Now, if Randolph were to fill his pockets full of dung and go all over town, can you imagine the effect that that would have on people in town or on his friends? That he shows up smelling like dung everywhere where he is. And it's kind of like if we get angry with the situations in our life, in a sense we're carrying around this dung or this dis-ease, discomfort, this kind of negative energy wherever we go. And our friends and relatives aren't going to want to be around us. So, but Randolph has a great solution for what to do with the dung. This is what he says. I will take this here dung and I'll put it in my wheelbarrow and wheel it around to the back of my house, and then I will dig it into my garden. Even if I can only move a wheelbarrow or two a day, I will get it all moved eventually. At least I'm going to do something about my problem. And that's the same for us. If we can take action on a situation rather than carrying it around with it, that we'll feel a lot better. And some morning we will wake up and walk out on our porch and the dung will be gone. in the meantime, a miracle has happened. Because Randolph took that dung around to the back of his house and planted in his garden grew beautiful flowers and plants and fruit. His neighbors said, "Oh, Randolph, what a beautiful garden you can have. I can smell it all the way down to the street at my house. And your fruit trees the limbs are bent over with the full fruit." And isn't that the way it is for us too? If we're able to deal constructively with the challenges in our lives, it affects everyone around us. There's miracles wherever we are. A few years ago, a congregant of mine asked me if I could share my time with her and do some spiritual counseling with her. And she shared with me some challenging things that were happening in her life. And I thought it was interesting because as she shared these things, she was laughing and she was smiling. And I kind of thought, wow, this is kind of an interesting way to tell me about all of these difficult things. And then she said, "I want to show you my necklace." And she showed me her necklace, and on her necklace it said, "No mud, no lotus." So if you know a little bit about the symbology of the lotus, you know that the lotus typically grows in mud, and it plants its roots down deep in the mud and takes the nourishment out of the mud and creates this beautiful, fragrant flower. So the understanding here is that the mud is the manure for the Bodhi. And Bodhi is about awakening. And so it is the mud that helps to create the awakening of the lotus flower in the same way that the dung and the mud in our lives become the food for our awakening. You know, we all have difficult times in our lives. This is a difficult time for many of us right now with the coronavirus and having to stay home. And we also deal with other things like a difficulty in a relationship, or difficulty with our finances, or difficulty with our health. And I think if we can change the way we look upon these things and see them as opportunities for awakening, we'll find better ways to deal with them productively. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, and Love, suggests that we give ourselves a measure of mercy and compassion. And she is saying this about right now. If we can just be merciful with ourselves, if we can relax into what's happening and just totally be present for what's happening right now, and in a sense, cut ourselves some slack, be present. She says that there's no species on earth that is more resourceful than we are. And we as human beings have made it through many tragedies and disasters, and we have always found a way to get through it. And I know that the same thing is going to happen right now. You know, I think that we are experiencing this coronavirus individually, collectively, on a world scale, in a way that's going to create transformation for all of us. I think that the experiences in our lives that we often try and run away from can often be the experiences that we gain the most transformation from. The Dalai Lama tells a story about when the Chinese invaded Tibet. He said all of the monks and people were running into India. He said, except for one of my teachers. One of my teachers, instead of running away like everyone else, walked straight into China. And he said, that was the last time I ever saw my teacher. while everyone else ran away. He walked into China. You know, all of the first responders that are helping us so much right now, the doctors and the nurses and their staff and even the people in the grocery store are, in a sense, walking into this challenge. And I think that we really need to acknowledge and appreciate them for the sacrifices that they are making for us. And in the same way, we too can walk into the challenges in our life. We can walk into the painful feelings and the painful emotions that are showing up for all of us right now. And I know that's true. Just about everybody that I talk to has some kind of a challenge in their life right now. And I think that the way to do it is to walk into the challenges with curiosity. To say, you know, what is happening? What am I feeling? How is it to feel this way? Can I be present and be curious and just be present to what's happening? You know, when we are able to root deep into our spiritual nature, when we can root deep into the truth of who we are, we can allow this experience to help us to be present and to be compassionate to ourselves. And when we are compassionate to ourselves, then we can be compassionate to the world. And maybe this is one of the things that is calling us forth right now, to be compassionate. Here, and here. And just to be present for each other. Oftentimes, when we walk out on our porch and we discover a truckload of dung, or we find ourselves walking through mud, we get stuck, right? And so we get to choose, how are we going to respond to that? Are we going to respond by blaming somebody else? Or can we reach into the depths of that dung and that mud and call upon the compassion and the love and the creativity that's within ourselves to operate from a place of spirit and truth? You know, or are we going to blame somebody else and say, you know, oh, this is the Chinese problem, or somebody else caused this, or, you know, I'm not the one that's responsible for this, so I'm going to be angry about it. You know, it reminds me of a man was in the hospital, and he had been in and out of having a coma, and his wife was there the entire time. In fact, his wife was there when he came out of the coma. And he said to her, honey, come here. And she walked over and sat next to his bed, and he said, you know what? You've been with me this entire time. You've been with me through all of the hard times. When I got fired, you were with me. When I fell and broke my arm, you were with me. When I tried and failed at having my own business, you were with me. You were with me when we lost our house. You gave me support. And even through this time now when my health has been failing, you were still by my side. You know what? And she says, no, what, dear? And the man looks at her and he says, you know, I think you're bad luck. And isn't that so often what we do, is we try to blame and make something wrong, to make somebody wrong, instead of just be curious. Just be curious, you know, as to why is this happening? What can I do? How can I be present? Most of the common strategies, I have one common strategy that we use when we have a problem. And if you're familiar with Buddhism, you might know it's the second arrow idea. You know, when something happens to us and we find ourselves in a difficult situation or in a tragedy, we feel the pain of that arrow, right? And it hurts. And the second arrow is when we blame ourselves, or when we say, oh, you know, this happened because I'm not smart enough, or because I don't have the ability to correct this, or because I'm not strong enough, or I'm really not a good person. And so the second arrow is often the one that causes the most pain. So I'm bringing this up because we all have challenging seasons in our lives. We feel vulnerable, we feel afraid, we feel like we don't know how to respond. Sometimes we feel like, you know, that we are stuck. We come to a stop sign and we can't go any further. But it seems to me that we can look at what seems like a stop sign as a detour. You know, it's like the path has changed. And instead of struggling against what appears to be a difficult time or a stopping point for us, if we can just realize this is just a detour, I get to go another direction. I think that this coronavirus is a detour. In fact, I think the coronavirus is part of the path for many of us. I mean, it's here, it is what it is, and it is the mud that is going to lead to our awakening. Maya Angelou said, I've learned that you can tell a lot about a person by the way he or she handles these three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, or tangled Christmas decorations. We've all experienced those things, haven't we? And it's kind of interesting when you look at how we handle those things. How patient are we? How loving are we? Can we just be curious? Oh, wow, interesting. The Christmas decorations are a mess. You know, I can remember a time when I might have just thrown them across the room or thrown them away. And can we just take them and go, okay, this is what it is. The Christmas decorations are a mess. So I get to take the time to unravel them. So I like that. How do we respond to the dung on the porch? How do you respond to the dung on the porch? How do you respond to when you get stuck in the mud? Do you resist it? Are you curious about it? An unknown person said, we know we are enlightened when we take a detour and are able to enjoy the scenery. Don't you love that? How many times have you been in your car and you get frustrated when you're going someplace, or you get lost and you get anxious? What if we could just enjoy the scenery and be curious? One of the things I think that we can do right now that's most productive is to have hope. You know, to know that we as human beings are very brilliant people. That through thousands of years, we've been able to get through situations that are very difficult. And I think that when we have hope, we engage the positive part of who we are. And to believe in ourselves, to believe in humankind, and to sort of put that out to humanity, that like, we're there for you. You know, that we are going to make it through this situation together. Some of the most peaceful people I know, and the most gentle people that I know, and the most centered people that I know, are those that have had to wade through the mud, that have had to move the manure from their porch, and they've been able to plant it in the garden of their life. So how about you? What if the next time that you find that there's a difficulty in your life, what if you said, whoopee, more fertilizer for my garden? So let's take this idea into meditation. I invite you to close your eyes and take some deep breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. And just being aware right now of how you're feeling. Maybe how is your life right now? Is there something difficult for you? Is this time with the coronavirus difficult for you? Are you feeling present to it? Are you feeling curious about it? Or are you feeling kind of distant? Maybe trying to push it away, not be present to it. So just breathe into, how is it for you? Have you been thinking that this is a bad thing? Certainly, it's bad in the sense that a lot of people have suffered. A lot of people have died. But in terms of your own life, how do you see it? Is there a place in you where you have hope? Can you see this as a detour? Can you find a way to connect with that depth within you, that spiritual center? Can you find that amidst what appears to be dung or appears to be mud? Can you see where you are right now, this circumstance in the world? Can you see this as the path? Can this opportunity for enlightenment bring some awakening in you? May this serve to awaken compassion and wisdom. And let's just sit for a moment in this possibility. May this possibility help to wake up your heart. Imagine I invite you to bring your awareness back to your breath, your attention back to this moment. To open your eyes, to breathe. And I'd like to end this talk by sharing with you a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "Everyone knows that we need mud for lotuses to grow. The mud doesn't smell so good, but it helps the lotus flower and the lotus smells very good. If you don't have mud, the lotus won't manifest. You can't grow lotus flowers on marble. Without mud, there is no lotus. Boundless possibilities blossom in the garden of my life. Think that or say that with me. Boundless possibilities blossom in the garden of my life. And so it is. Namaste. Well, I invite you to prepare your tithes and your love offerings, and to bring your gifts forward with love and light, to be thankful for the work of Unity Church of Maui. Even though we're doing our Sunday service very differently now, we still have the opportunity to pay for our mortgage and pay for our bills, and your love offerings give us the opportunity to continue this work. So thank you for your gifts, and you can go online to unitychurchofmaui.org if you'd like to give there, and also you can mail love offerings to our address. But in the meantime, let's take our gifts and let's pray together our prayer of prosperity, which begins: through a grateful, giving heart, my mind and life overflow with the abundance of God's all-providing infinite supply. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you for your gifts. You know, one of the greatest gifts or benefits I think that Unity Church of Maui provides to our community and to our congregation is this sense of community. You know, we are a community of like-minded people, people that I know have faith in humankind, people I know who want to see a better world, people I know who have come together to love and support each other. And I imagine there might be some of you who would like to stay in contact with our community, yes? And we have an avenue for doing that. And that is 3 times a week. We are doing community meetings through Zoom, and I would very much like to encourage you to be a part of that. There are 3 ways you can do it. One of them is at 11 o'clock today, Sunday. We're having a Zoom meeting, and people get together and share what their thoughts were about our message today, and how they're feeling about that, and people get to talk with and share with each other about what's going on in their lives. And you can find the link to this page in our newsletter. And if you're not getting the newsletter, call the office and leave a message and let me know, and I will hook you up so that you can get our e-blast. Just give me your email address. So that's happening at 11 o'clock today. And then on Wednesday at noon, we have our daily word and meditation, very similar to what we did in my office back in the old days. And we'll read the daily word and sit in the silence for about 30 minutes together. And that's also available on Zoom. Again, the link is on our a page in our e-blast. And finally, we do a Friday night Zoom. And in that, we get together and we share what's happening in our lives. And I'll come up with some kind of some spiritual nugget that we can talk about. It's quite fun, and that happens from 7:30 until about 8:30 every Friday night. And we have a special event coming up this coming Wednesday. It's Emily Goss's 70th birthday. Don't tell her that I told you how old she is, because she's so much younger in spirit. But I thought it'd be fun for us to have a Zoom call to celebrate her birthday. That'll happen at 7 o'clock this coming Wednesday. And you can bring something spiritual to share, a poem or something. And if we have time, we'll get to that. But the main focus, we wanted to be about Emily and appreciating her. So we'll give everybody a chance to share something that they appreciate about Emily. And there's so many things. And so that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be happening this coming Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Next week, my talk is titled, What If It All Goes Right? Can you imagine what that would be like if everything was right and perfect? And that talk is based on this book, and you've probably heard me talk about it. What If It All Goes Right? It's by Mindy Odlin, and so I'll pick something out of this book and share that. And then also, you might have heard Mindy's name before. Mindy is the creator of the spirit groups. And we just finished recently a round of spirit groups, and she created that curriculum for those groups, which were very successful, and for this book, which we're going to do. And so this week in the newsletter, we'll have a little video of Mindy talking about this book and what the spirit groups will be about. It's really an exciting time. We are going to do the next round of spirit groups on Zoom, so you'll hear some more information about that. And also, if you would like to look at past Sunday messages, you'll find them on our Unity Church of Maui YouTube page. Easy to find, just do a Google search, Unity Church of Maui, YouTube. And so I think that's about all that we can share at this moment. Thank you for being here together, and let's pray together the prayer for protection, which begins, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Mahalo. God bless.